Debbie's going to put us on.
There we go. We have to put this on. No, we're waiting for them to turn the camera on. We're good now.
Okay, welcome to the Tuesday, April 21st, Fishkill Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. You were ready. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I see we're short one regular member. I would like to appoint Johnny Kahn as a full voting member for the night. Good, John?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, I guess the first thing that we need to do is, because the public hearing was renoticed, we need to make a motion and reopen a public hearing. Can I get a motion to that effect?
Make that motion to reopen the public hearing.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed. Thank you. Okay, so what we have before us tonight is a continuation of the Willow Lake properties. Let me just go read through this here again. Okay, at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, ZBA application ZB 26-001, Willow Lake Partners Group. The applicant is requesting the following area variances for the adaptive reuse of several existing structures and amenities for the construction of new improvements to include overnight motel accommodations for guests comprised of 32 semi-attached motel structures, 64 units, each approximately 600 feet in size, and 16 fully detached motel structures, each approximately 950 square feet in size. Accessory buildings, including a restaurant with outdoor seating areas, a large event space designed for group dining and special occasions, a welcome building, small building serving as a trailhead for on-site hiking, a spa building, fitness building, an accessory flex building, hiking trails, parking, and all other necessary site improvements. Okay, the variants are as follows. A 21-foot-3 front yard setback variance from the front road center line for the proposed valet checkout building connection, where 75 feet is the minimum required front yard setback from the road center line in the R40 zoning district. Said variance will result in a 53.7 feet front yard setback. Number 2, a 22.2-foot front yard setback variance from the front line for the proposed valet checkout building connection, where 50 feet is the minimum required front yard setback from the front line in the R40 zoning district. Said variance will result in a 27.8 feet front yard setback. Number 3, a front yard setback to allow parking to be located in the front yard for the proposed valet parking lots, where parking is not permitted in the front yard. Number 4, a 15-foot wall height variance, where 6 feet is the maximum wall height permitted. Said variance will result in a 21-foot wall height at its highest point. The retaining wall height does vary. And number 5, a construction on steep slopes variance to allow disturbance of approximately 0.11 acres of the 55.87 acres of existing steep slopes, where new construction shall avoid areas of steep slopes. Slopes greater than 20% over a horizontal distance of 100 or more feet. The lands affected by this application are shown generally on tax map parcel number 625500-432320, located at 416 Willow Lake Drive, consisting of 92.82 acres in the R40 and R4A zoning districts. Tax map parcel 6255-00472382, located at 138 Van Wyck Lake Road, consisting of 10.98 acres in the R40 and R4A zoning districts. And tax map parcel 6255-00359445, located on Van Wyck Lake Road, consisting of 1.74 acres in the R40 zoning district. Willow Lake is the subject of a site development plan approval and a special use permit approved by the Town of Fishkill Planning Board, identified as Planning Board Application PB 25-001, and a freshwater wetlands / watercourse / water body permit identified as Application PB 25-006. So at this time, maybe the applicant could come up, and I know you guys have made several changes to the plans and responded to some of the public comments, some of our comments here. I'm sure we still have a few questions, but if you want to maybe just highlight what you've done, and then we can go into some questions.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Zoning Board. For the record, Zach Cam from Dynamic Engineering. Since the last meeting, we provided a number of different documents for the board's review, largely circling around different types of visual analysis, sight lines, retaining wall exhibits, plant palettes to really help the board visualize mainly the front yard area of the site. We also included a number of documents related to the OLS subdivision plat, a copy of that deed restriction, and one other update for the zoning board. When we were before the planning board last, they have signed a copy of the EAF parts 2 and 3, and they are preparing and reviewing a resolution for neg deck at their upcoming May meeting. I wanted to briefly go into the retaining wall exhibit. I think it probably does the best job at kind of understanding a clear depiction for a number of the variances before you. Shown on the plan here are a number of different colors. The blue area right here is what I want to draw your attention to. That's about a 30-foot long area that makes up about 5% of the total retaining wall length for the entire site. That's the only area of site where the retaining wall height reaches that 21-foot height that we're requesting the variance for. The remainder of the retaining wall averages about 12 to 13 feet in total height. This section of retaining wall is also located about 40 feet from the property line, about 50 feet from the edge of pavement, and is directly across from a town-owned permanent open space. I'll turn it over in a couple of moments to our landscape architect to go through some of the sightline renderings and different plan palettes.
Good evening, everyone. Just a reminder for those of you who were on site, I believe all of you were, that blue section there represents the area of the boulder that you saw protruding from that space. That's the exact location.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, just a reminder for the board, the reason for that retaining wall height is to really fill on top of that boulder and limit the rock excavation associated with its removal. Do you want the sight lines?
Yeah. Is the pallets the same as well?
It's a separate one. I'll open that for you. No, I'll be right next to you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marla Roller. I'm a landscape architect. I work with the team on the Willow Lake project and was responsible for putting together the landscape plans for this project. So for tonight, we're going to focus on these exhibits that you were recently given that emphasize the buffering across the front of the site. We have this opening exhibit here shows this is the main house. The existing driveway is right here. The secondary driveway that is down here by the other stone cottage on this side. And we have several exhibits that we've cut through the front here that I'm going to go through in more detail so you get a sense of how that's going to look. Can I do the down arrows? Okay, this is just a little bit of a blow up of that previous one so you can see a little bit more close. This is the existing driveway that goes up to the main stone residence up here, and we have sight lines starting with E, F, G, H, and so on, and I'll go to those in more detail. This is the first view, which is site exhibit E, which I'll just go back and show you that it's this view right when you're coming up to the property where that existing driveway is now. There's a little opening in the little stone walls that exist there. That's just beyond that point. You'll see that the walls, as Zach mentioned, have a parapet on them, meaning that beyond the height of what we needed for retaining, the walls are slightly elevated so that they actually themselves screen the cars. Then in addition to that, we have plantings in front of the wall. This shows year 0, so this is at installation of what you would see. In general, the way the plan works and was designed is that we have evergreens up against the wall, and in front of that, we'll soften that with some deciduous trees and some understory shrubs, so you're getting a layering effect through the whole little area that's there. This would be year 5 in that same location after you've had a chance to get some growth in some of these things. So you can see by year 5, the types of plants that were selected are already giving you a really good screen of that wall and the parking that's behind it. By year 10, it's even more significant. You'll see that it completely buffers that whole front area there. This is for sightline F, which I'll just, bear with me, go back to show you where that is. It's this secondary spot, which is going to show the location of the second parking area, and it's maybe halfway in between the main driveway to the main stone home and the cottages that's there. So bear with me while I scroll through. So this is F. Again, there are some existing trees, so please note that, and you've been out to the site so you're familiar, there are some large existing trees along the roadway that are going to be maintained. So what the new planting will be and the construction will be behind those, and will enhance those to help get you a thicker buffer, and those will be maintained. So these existing trees will be remaining here. Here's the wall behind it, parking, parapet, and again, we have a little bit more space here. We've filled in a little bit up here to limit the size of the wall. We have room here for a staggered double row of evergreens because we have a little bit more space, so we're taking advantage of that. And then understory, some shade tolerant things that will grow behind these existing trees and still give you the benefit of some buffering. This is your...
Excuse me just for a second, is that the highest point wall? Yeah, it is, right? Okay,
It is, yes.
You were asking the same question.
Yeah. So again, this is year 0, the initial part of the planting, where in this particular location, you're still getting the benefit of this existing tree that's going to, line of trees that's going to stay out there. In year 5, you can see again, based on the type of species that we've selected, we're already getting a substantial screen of the wall. And then by year 10, really filled in, very robust buffer with lots of layers in it. I'll get you to some more detailed drawings as we go through, but there's going to be, not only these evergreens in the back, but we enhance with flowering things, so it feels all very natural, very seasonal as you go through the whole planting and through the year. This is G. Bear with me while I take you back to where G is, just forget your bearings. G is right here. This is the existing stone cottage that's down by the road. So this is just past that. So I'm going to go back to G. It's a much smaller wall back here. Again, there's some existing trees that will remain out in this area. We have a little bit more space here as well. Again, a little bit more fill to get the height of the wall lower and a little more room for additional landscape. So we have evergreens again against the wall, trees, understory shrubs. This is year 0. Again, still getting softened by the existing mature landscaping out in front. This is year 5, where you can see that it's already doing a really substantial job of screening, and by year 10, we've really filled in there with a nice buffer. The next spot we have is H. I'm going to take you back to the, probably should have repeated it so we didn't have to scroll back. H is, there's the cottage, Now we're past that into the secondary parking area over here, really past anything that you see on the site now. Bear with me. Oops, went too far. This is H. Did we do H already?
That's right, this is it.
Again, existing landscapes, lower section of retaining wall, room for a double row of evergreens here, and some understory shrubs that will grow up underneath those existing trees. Year 0 at installation, year 5, you can see that this is already above that wall because that wall is so low. Year 10, completely buffered.
I'd like a clarification here.
Sure.
So you had said you're putting a little bit of fill, and then you're also having the wall. Can you just clarify that a little bit? I want to make sure that I'm looking and understanding correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at the plan here,
Yeah.
there's a bit of a proposed berm, which
Okay.
basically elevates the ground adjacent to the retaining wall, which adds a larger area for planting as well as reduces the height of the retaining wall.
Okay.
And some of that is because of some of the stone and that's out there, so that we're not having, so we can work above that, but it adds the added benefit of keeping the walls lower. This next section, this is the neighbors. Yeah, this is the neighbors down past the site, and you're going past the site up on the hill. So we had some conversations with them so we could mitigate any concerns about their viewpoint from up in their house down to the proposed improvements on the site. We have, what is that distance? Because I can't see it.
It's about 250.
250 feet, thank you. So we have about 250 feet from the house to the nearest improvement, which is quite substantial. And there is an entire wooded area in here that's existing that will remain. We do recognize that even though that is a 200 to 250 foot distance and it is a substantial wooded buffer that will remain, that it is significantly deciduous, so that in the winter, there is going to be views from that house out through the site. So we've put up a couple of ideas so that we could add some extra plantings to help mitigate the view that they would have of the improvements on site. They include up here at the top of the hill some evergreens, but we didn't want to do just a wall of evergreens. We mixed it with some ornamental trees and some shrubs so that there would feel like a very natural planting at the edge of the woods. There's two different options. One of them is to plant right at the edge of the woods, and one is to try to plant within the woods. This is, yeah, the two different ways that we could plant, and just start showing some growth as they get established.
So the two options that you just talked about, has that been decided on yet, or you're still?
No.
It
No,
hasn't?
no,
Is that
we're just,
something you're working on with the neighbors, or?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
So when will that be finalized and shown on the plans, what you plan to do?
So it's really going to be up to the neighbors to decide what they would prefer, and ultimately up to, I guess, once we get to that stage in terms of finalizing. But we are putting on record that we will do either of the options that the neighbors would prefer.
Okay, thank you.
So the one that I just showed previously, this one is a little bit closer to their structure, but it's more on the edge of the wood, so it gives you a little bit of a different plant palette you can use because you're getting more sun. So you have a little bit more options. The second one that's here, this shows at initial planting, we're a little bit further down the hill, so it's not as immediate of an effect, and we're a little bit more limited to our options because everything's going to be in a more shaded condition. So there's a different plant palette, but it's a little bit more space from their home.
Yeah, said a little differently, one is a potential screening wall that's a little bit closer to their residence that would maintain almost 100% blockout, but the other is to give them a little bit more of a sight line and still preserve the distance that they get from their sight line and space out the plantings from their home a bit, so it feels like a more natural, assortment, if you will.
Okay.
And this is the one, the secondary one, where it's a little bit more spread out in the woods, and it still has the opportunity to grow up and provide screening over the 5 and now this would be over the 10-year period. I will note that having been out there, there is even the deciduous trees in the winter due to the really dense branching habit and just the overlay of tree on tree on tree when you see 200 feet of them, even without leaves, you do get a fairly substantial screening of just the amount of branching and stuff that's out there too. But we wanted to give them an extra layer of that. So we were offering up these options as additional mitigation for that view.
Just to that point, because I've been up there a couple of times, as happens in wooded areas, there's a lot of dead growth, well, dead growth, I guess, is a oxymoron, but, so that is something, and I'm sure that you're working with the neighbors to deal with that, but there's a lot of fallen trees. As we get, winds coming through, they're knocking some trees down. So that was just something that I had observed. So I like that you're offering a couple of different options for them, because there's a lot of dead trees, too.
In either option that they may choose, I think would be a substantial view line improvement. But of course, we understand it's subject to their review and ultimate decision.
Thank you.
So I wanted to go back just briefly and just to give you a visual for, we talked about, these are the same sight lines that we just talked about, but I wanted to show you just visually what some of those plants look like so that you get a little bit of better understanding of what you would actually see when you're looking toward the wall in these different locations. So this first one is that first view where we're right at the driveway of the up to the main house. And it's a combination of American hollies, there's river birch, we have some ornamental grasses here, and some large hydrangeas. So giving you a mix of flowering things, seasonal things, all native things, the evergreen spine. A lot of these things are going to give you an enhanced habitat for wildlife as well. So that's sort of, this isn't everything that's being planted, just giving you kind of a snapshot so you just start getting, a little bit of an idea of the types of things that we're looking to do. Yes, and they were also not only selected for native, their native qualities, but because of trying to get as much deer resistance out there for these plantings as possible, because we know that that's a part of the issue. So that was part of the selection process as well. This is the next section down that was over the next section of the parking lot, and we have we were able to fit, because of the depth here from the road, some larger trees like sycamore, swamp white oak. Here we could fit green giant arborvitaes, which are western native, but they grow fast and they're a really great screening tree. So where the wall was higher and we had more room, we're opting to use some of those here as well. We have dogwoods here and bottlebrush buckeye, which grows really fast native and has a really great flower to it. And that is so dense that even when that is deciduous and loses its leaves, it's like forsythia, where you get a mass of it, you can't even see through it afterwards. Further down, we have red maples, more green giants, some red cedars, another great native evergreen tree, serviceberry. You get the berries, you get the flowers, you get great fall color, and the same with this burgundy viburnum, which you also get the berries and the flowers and the great fall color. So a lot of these are really great for wildlife habitat as well. And again, deer-resistant plants. Further down, some repeats of the same, but we've also worked in some pyramidal white pine. We chose the pyramidal because they stay very dense to the ground, unlike the more standard ones that get a little bit more open. These stay more narrow and dense. Repeated some holly, repeated some dogwood and serviceberry. So that just gives you a snapshot as you're moving down the road of what types of plants. And again, there's many more that are in there. I just wanted to give you an overview so you could sort of see how we're working in seasonality, flowering things. You're getting that background of the screening. We're adding some large shade trees where we have the room, smaller ornamentals where we're a little bit tighter on space. And that's sort of the look that it'll enhance the existing vegetation that's out there. It'll just feel like a improved version of what you're already seeing. It won't look different necessarily. We wanted it to blend in with the environment.
Yeah.
Happy to take questions.
I think you really did a nice job of, kind of filling in there and obscuring that wall, which was a big concern for us. You know, I mean, I know it's not all 21 feet tall, but, you know, when you drive down that road, you don't want to be looking at this big massive wall.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
I think that's going to help in the long run.
Great, that was
Thank
the
you.
goal. Thank you.
Was there any other changes that you wanted to go over, Zach?
No, that was all for the open. Happy to answer any questions the board has.
All right, well, what I'm going to do, I think, is we'll see if anybody from the public wants to speak again, and then we'll come back to the board. I know I have a couple more questions for you guys, and I'm sure some of the board members might as well. So at this point, I'm going to open it up to the public. I'd just like to go over the rules and regulations one time quick. Speakers are asked to come to the podium and identify themselves so that their name may be entered into the record by the Zoning Board of Appeals Secretary. In this case, we have a stenographer tonight, so when you come to the podium, if you could just say your name, first name, last name clearly, so she can get it into the record, it would be appreciated. Verbal interruptions, shouting, or other outbursts, as well as slanders or obscene language or signs with the body or face are prohibited. Speakers are limited to one turn at the microphone and podium. Speakers are limited to 3 to 4 minutes at the microphone or podium. Speakers should provide only new or different information or commentary. Repetitive comments made previously or at prior meetings are prohibited. Comments are limited to the matters involving the business before the board. In other words, a particular application that is the subject of the public hearing. If a person continues to interrupt after the chair has asked them to stop, they'll be asked to leave and escorted from the meeting room if necessary. This time, I'd like to ask if anybody would like to come up and speak on anything new that you might have. David, maybe you could just keep a little time for me, please? Thank you.
I will. My name is Stephen Schofield. I live at 40 Van Wyck Lake Road, and I've lived majority of my life on Van Wyck Lake Road. My grandfather was a caretaker for the Willow Lake Estate when I was a kid. Used to fish the lake. I'm worried about two things. Well, one is the water. Where they want to put the wall and the boulder, where the boulder is, it's a low-lying area, and that collects a lot of water. And you're going to have pretty parking lots there. Where is the water going to go? That's one concern.
Okay.
Other concern was that you have weddings and stuff, and people come out of that road, maybe having a little bit too much to drink. I'm worried about them coming down that road. And not familiar with the road. It's not like people that live on the road, or the people, even the people who commute, they're familiar with the corners and stuff. I'm worried about when I come out of my driveway getting hit, or my neighbors getting hit coming out of their driveways. So one man has a blind corner right in his house that's out by the road. I think it's a dangerous situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Marie Sprock, S-P-R-O-C-K. I am the house that you were talking about, so I probably should have went first, but I didn't. First, I want to acknowledge and thank the members of the board who took the time to come out to our home to see the impact of these variances firsthand. That effort matters, and it stands in stark contrast to what effort, or should I say lack of effort, the planning board has made as lead agency to understand our concerns. What is being proposed here cannot be fully understood through plans and renderings alone, and despite the belief of minimal or no impact as indicated in the recent FEAF Part 2 and 3 review, there are going to be real impacts to our homes and our quality of life. I spoke at the first public hearing. Our position as a family has not changed. The applicants have made their case, we've made ours, back and forth. We could argue that they should be applying for a use variance instead of an area variance for that parking lot, but I don't know where that's going to go. At this point, the responsibility falls to the zoning board to restore some measure of balance. And frankly, balance is a difficult word to use here, because on one side, we have the homeowners who have invested in their homes and properties for decades, fully within the R40, R4A zoning intent. And on the other side is a proposal for a large-scale commercial operation in a location where that intensity was never intended. It's not an even starting point. Because of that, the proposed plantings and foliage buffers are not a cosmetic detail. They become critical mitigation for us. From the elevation of our home, I know some of you have seen it, we have a direct bird's eye view into what will become that front yard commercial parking lot, and it will become part of our daily living environment. Something we never could have anticipated nor chose when we decided to build in that neighborhood and zone. We've met with Alex to discuss the planting options. I think they've submitted the drawings. I have them to submit again as well with my package. But it's still largely conceptual, it remains uncertain, and it lacks definitive commitment. I'm assuming that will be tightened up at some point, I don't know when. But given the scale and the permanence of the impact, it's extremely important. We're asking the board to take clear enforceable action to make those buffers a non-negotiable condition to any variances that are approved with specific enforceable language. This can't only apply to our property, but also the Pacone property, that's on 30 Cathy Court, because they'll be affected as well, and they have a planting palette I think they're working through as well. Require that planting begin immediately with large, mature specimens, as large as you can start with. That's important because we're going to be impacted from day one, and meaningful screening, as they indicated, isn't going to materialize for potentially a decade. So that imbalance must be addressed. I also would request that all the plantings are included in the performance bond, whatever on the Pacone property or on our property. So they're using high-quality materials, they're maintaining it, so they do continue to grow and flourish as they've indicated. Lastly, at the first meeting, there was the dumpsters. They indicated that they were going to remove those from the front parking lot, and I just don't want that to lose sight. And I want, if possible, to have language in there that says they cannot have storage or dumpsters in that front location. So at the end of the day, if the variances are granted, the burden of that decision will fall on the surrounding residents, not the applicant. So the least that can be done for us is to ensure meaningful enforceable protections are in place from the onset. Thank you. And then the other thing I want to just add, about the trees that are currently there that Marla had discussed, a lot of them are dead. We're in the process right now. It's spring cleanup time. A lot of that deciduous stuff is going to come down because it's damaged. That microburst that went through destroyed a lot of stuff. We're actually looking forward to them cleaning up the ones that fell on their side, but putting up some type of screening is going to become even more important after the cleanup happens. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rich Drake, D-R-A-K-E, and we live at 70 Van Wyck Lake Road. I'm here to express opposition to granting variances for Willie Lake Partners to inject a large commercial enterprise into our residentially zoned neighborhood. Some of our residents have already signed petitions opposing this. The applicant seeks adaptive reuse of several existing structures. This euphemistic language implies a minor change when it is massive. They claim to be rejuvenating a historic inn where rooms were rented occasionally, when it is actually an expansive $40 million investor invasion that adds multiple structures up to 35 feet high, 80 motel rooms, a total of 116,000 square feet of indoor space, and hundreds of parking spaces. A town official is quoted as saying, "This could make Fishkill a premier destination for weddings and celebrations." But I doubt any of you would want it in your neighborhood. Numerous town codes should prevent this from happening. Developers trying to inject commercial properties in residential neighborhoods often petition rezoning and special use permits and variances or ways to sidestep regulations. There are plenty of lawyers willing to represent them, tell them what to say so they get what they want. That's why residents and taxpayers rely on you to protect our interests by enforcing regulations, asking the right questions, and voicing and approve legality and veracity of their claims. There is a collective impact here beyond Willow Lake. This community has fought Continental Commons for years, even though it's a general business zone. Now a medical center is planned for Snook Road, with a distribution center proposed nearby. Please ask yourself if you'd want that in your neighborhood either. The petitioners expect construction to take 18 to 24 months. This is an unacceptable prolonged disruption that tears up Van Wyck Lake Road to install power, sewer, up to 30 gallons of water a day, and hundreds of trucks bringing thousands of yards of fill to the site. Construction noise can exceed acceptable and safe levels well beyond the arbitrary 500-foot zone of influence that someone decided was acceptable. Actually, 39 homes are in close proximity. Excuse me. So there's about 5 issues here. Zoning is one of them. We know that this particular area is neither zone 4A or 40 were ever meant to be commercial properties. And the contrary to the petitioner's justification of little impact that constructing houses would have been different, it pales in comparison to 80 rental units with hundreds of people instead of homeowners that come and go at various times. Section 150-19 of the Town Code says that a project should not adversely impact public health, safety, and general welfare of residents. It should share characteristics in common with and not of greater intensity, density, or environmental impact. And I think we know that there's a big difference here between what was there and what would be there when they're allowed to do this. And it should have no greater adverse effects on traffic, noise, air quality, parking, or any other relevant attributes. Now, we know about the parking situation, so I won't get into that. But they will have to put up an extremely high wall, like a fortress, to stop headlights from shining on people's homes. The traffic is section 150-71, so I've obviously done some of my homework here. The statute says that existing town roads are to be suitably improved so as to be capable of safely accommodating the increased traffic generated. This winding, narrow road cannot be widened. The 115-page dynamic traffic study exhibits volume over content. It does not require 115 pages in a study paid for by the applicant to provide a dubious conclusion that the project has little impact. What is conspicuously absent is a common-sense, reality-based analysis of how many vehicles will occupy Van Wyck Lake Road, or how long people will have to wait in line to clear the road, or what will happen if they suspend valet parking. I reviewed Google Earth and looked at it at scale and allowed 20 feet per vehicle. That means that 100 vehicles occupying Willow Lake to Route 9 would bring traffic to its standstill. This applies to patrons arriving and departing, blocking emergency vehicles, blocking up to 7 driveways, and waiting for traffic lights to change. In addition, as already mentioned, patrons might become intoxicated, presenting an unacceptable risk.
Okay, if you could just wrap it up real quick, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so there's an issue of damage to property values, noise that would go on for years, not just months. There's questions that we've asked about whether this circumstance of the project of this magnitude has ever been allowed in a residential zone. The potential of flooding was a concern. And last but not least, rumor has it that Willow Lake partners have purchased Maya Cafe and offered a portion of Willow Lake's property to the town. If that is accurate, it would appear that they are proceeding as if the project has already been approved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else, just please keep in mind that she's bring up some new points, okay, not things we've already heard before. Thank you.
My name is Edmund Spaeth, and I live on Van Wyck Lake Road. I don't know that any of you people have ever driven up that road. It's narrow and winding. The developers have talked about mitigating the landscape, but they haven't talked about mitigating the traffic problem that's going to be created on Van Wyck Lake Road. I live in a house very near the road, and it's on a blind turn. I have a very hard time as it is now getting out of my driveway without being collided with some other speeding car coming down the hill. I don't know that we need there's a compelling need for 65 more units of motel space on a very narrow road. They may be set off from that road, but all that traffic is going to create a problem for my neighbors and myself. And nobody has considered that as anything as important as that. You're going to create a problem. It already is a problem with trucks going up and down that narrow road and school buses. I think you ought to do a little bit more research and find out what they're going to do for the neighbors. All they're considering is the money that they're going to get. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Does anybody else like to speak?
Good evening, Michael Picone, 30 Cathy Court. First off, I just want to thank Tim and Ann for coming to visit. Much appreciated. As Marie said, you came and saw our perspective, and so I really appreciate that. I do believe that the parking lots, because it's being used for valet parking, that should be considered as a commercial operation, and therefore a use variance should also be required along with the area variances due to that fact. Apparently, if you don't charge for the valet parking, but it's included in the stay of the adjacent hotel motel, that it's not considered commercial, which I still disagree with. It's hidden money, it's buried in the cost of the adjacent property. R40, if it's being turned commercial, it should be a use variance. So there's a disagreement in opinion on that, but I would encourage the zoning board to carefully look at that with the building inspector. And I still haven't heard how runoff water from the parking lot directly from our backyard, along with the new proposed roadway, how that's going to be addressed and ensured that it's not going to come rushing across Van Wyck Lake Road directly into our property and run down into our side yard and our driveway and front yard. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay, thank you for your comments. We all listen, and we will take those into consideration. Okay, as far as the board goes, let's see if anybody has any questions or anything you need explained more. John, I'll start with you.
No, we took a site trip, and I learned a lot, and all the revisions that were made. I didn't get to meet all the neighbors. I also live on Van Wyck Lake Road. I actually grew up there on 225 on the corner of Cary and Van Wyck. Very familiar with what everybody's saying, but, I did come out there and look at things, but not necessarily knock on the doors. But, again, it's, just got to find a happy medium in between, to be honest.
Gotcha. Ann, do you have anything?
Are you able to respond to some of the questions specifically?
Yeah, we can, and I guess we could almost take it in order. Just briefly mention a lot of these issues have been presented to the planning board and have been discussed with the planning board and their independent consultants. And so that has gone through a lengthy process, but for the board's edification, we absolutely can go through some of those for you now.
Please.
We'll start with the stormwater, just kind of go down the list.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to flip back to one of the overalls, which does a pretty good job of outlining some of the stormwater practices. So each of the 4 parking lots has its own underground stormwater detention system. If you see these hatched areas underneath all of the parking lots that I'm circling right now, these are all underground stormwater practices that captures all of the runoff from all of the parking lots and the roadways. It sends it below ground in very large storage tanks. It is then released in a slow manner away from the neighboring properties out to the west of the site across from the town open space.
Zach, can you do me a favor? Can you zoom in on that parking lot on the right?
Sure.
And maybe if you can just kind of give me a general idea of how the flow of water is going to work as it comes into that parking lot.
Sure.
And I think the major concern here is that new drive going out to Van Wyck Lake Road. Okay, how that water comes if it's running straight down that road, out onto Van Wyck Lake Road, or how you are mitigating that water from getting
Yeah.
out to the street.
Before Zach gives you the technical part of how we structure the basins and where the water flows, just to remind the board, when you visited Willow Lake, Willow Lake is a bowl, right? And almost everything that lands in that bowl flows south to north. So with existing conditions where it currently is, water is flowing, and there have been incidents in the past that the neighbors have properly cited where water did spill out onto Van Wyck Lake Road. That is the current condition. So the condition that we are proposing not only substantially mitigates, but also almost creates that to be a non-issue with the amount of effort and infrastructure and basins that we're putting in and redirection, which is something that just doesn't exist today. That land was never touched, so.
Yeah, that's a great point. One of the documents we provided to the planning board as part of the seeker process is a stormwater pollution prevention plan. That document includes hydraulic modeling, a whole number of design criteria that we design the site to make sure we satisfy. One of those criteria is reducing runoff under proposed conditions compared to existing. So the basins that we've designed and installed will ensure that the amount of water leaving the site post-construction will be less than it currently is today without stormwater controls. Using these parking lots as an example and this driveway, there are a number of inlets that I'm highlighting right now that will capture the runoff that will then be piped underground into the practices themselves. So this eastern parking lot will get conveyed into this basin, which will then be piped into this basin, which will then be piped across the site past the frontage into the two adjacent basins under parking lots 1 and 2 before it ultimately discharges out to the west of the site.
So it's not really going to get to that new drive to run out into the
Won't even
street?
get there.
Correct. The driveway itself also has inlets sprinkled throughout and at the bottom, and the grading is forcing the water into that curb line to make sure that all of the water is captured and conveyed away from Van Wyck Lake Road and the adjacent
I think
properties.
sometimes people assume that the roadway will just kind of go like this, when in fact it does have a curvature to it to distribute the water evenly into those catch basins, so.
I mean, the day I was out there, I mean, it was pouring that day. And I'm sure you guys remember. And you could see the water running down Van Wyck Lake Road.
Yep.
And it was at least running the length of the road. It wasn't crossing over the road. And this was, prior to you guys even doing anything. So if you say that this is going to make that condition better?
It is.
And the planning board has seen this and approved it?
And with the engineers, with MJ Engineering as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. That makes me feel a little bit better.
We also have substantial mud conditions, which is common up here during that time of year, and that's also to our benefit to make sure that the stormwater runoff is cleanly moved off the site so that we don't have those conditions on site that will.
Sure.
One other thing too, it doesn't really impact flooding, but we are also treating the stormwater for water quality. So after the water is captured, detained, and slowly released, it's also run through a very large, think of it as a Brita, that will actually treat the water, remove suspended solid, remove total phosphorus before it's discharged. So not only is there going to be less of it, but it'll also be cleaner and treated for water quality.
Okay.
Just to go through a few of the other public comments.
Yeah, let me just make one comment that was addressed by Mrs. Sprock and then subsequently also by Mr. Picone. We've had many conversations with the neighbors about screening and things of the like. We have also, just in terms of commitment, we have put on the public record, both with the planning board and before you, that we are not only willing to make that mitigation and remediation, but also pay for it. That's been on the record before both boards. And so I believe at this point we're fairly substantially committed to that. The size and scale of that is something that needs to be planned with the neighbors, but we're fully committed to making that a 100% final commitment.
And you can put that in writing?
We have no objection to that. We're already on the record saying so.
Yeah, I think an ultimate site plan development permit from the planning board could simply have that as a condition of approval that we'd have no objection to. Going through one of the other comments that Marie Sprock raised, the dumpster has been relocated, so it is no longer shown in that area. It's currently being handled on site beneath both the restaurant as well as the event venue. So that dumpster is no longer there. And again, we would have no objection to a planning board approval resolution, including a condition stating that a dumpster cannot be located on either of those eastern parking lot areas.
Okay, thank you. That's good. This way we don't have to put that condition on this variance if it goes through.
Understood. I'll leave the few traffic comments to our traffic engineer for after this, but I'll walk through a few of the other public comments that we received. There was a comment about a 500-foot radius impact zone. I think that was a misunderstanding of just the simple 500-foot radius for noticing purposes. That is part of the town code. By no means was that supposed to be an impact area. It's simply just the town code identifying how many neighbors exist within 500 feet as per practice. There was a comment about potential noise. As part of the seeker review at the planning board, we did provide a acoustic study and a noise study that showed mitigation measures that, again, we are agreeing to as part of our planning board application of implementing on-site, ensuring that there will be no impact to neighbors in terms of noise.
Is this regarding noise while it's in operation or while it's being constructed?
So that specific study was while in operation. With respect to the construction, I do just want to qualify the timeline a little bit. The majority of the site work and earthwork that the neighbors will be most concerned with is actually limited to a few months. It is the plan that the majority of the buildings will actually be built in panelized systems off-site and then assembled on-site to mitigate the on-site disturbance and noise. There's really only a couple of buildings that will be stick-built: the event center, the welcome building, and the fitness and amenity building, and the restaurant. All of the cabins and the additional event spaces will all be built off-site and assembled.
Okay, so from start to finish, from when the minute you put a shovel in the ground to when you open, what kind of a time span are you
We're
looking at?
projecting 18 to 24 months from start to completion. We do need to tighten that up, and we're not in a position where we could make a firm commitment yet. That's subject to our permits, construction plans, and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Ann, did you have anything else, Ann?
No, I just wanted to hear their response.
Yeah, good. No, that's good. Doug, did you have anything else?
Well, I think we're going to get to parking. That was one of my concerns, of course, but I think we're going to get to that. So if I have any questions after that's delivered, I'll ask. Thank you.
There's one thing that I also do just quickly want to address for the board. So Maya Cafe has come up a couple times. It came up in the planning board as well. For the board's knowledge, I personally am part of an ownership group that did purchase Maya Cafe. We did close on that transaction in March. It is completely separate and distinct from Willow Lake. It will continue to operate as Maya Cafe. We have no plans for that property. So as of now, it will continue to function as it currently does. It's a great piece of property. It's a great restaurant. Luis, the owner, and I have a great relationship. It does really well. It makes money. It's something that we wanted to own. So it is separate and apart from Willow Lake. It's not part of the plan. It's not part of the project. And there's nothing proposed or being proposed for that site as of now.
Thank you.
We already touched on the flooding. We talked about the runoff from the parking lots. There were a few comments about traffic. So I'd like to bring our traffic consultant, Corey Chase from Dynamic Traffic, up just to discuss a study that was done and the review that's been done before the planning board.
Thanks, Zach. For sure. Good evening, everyone. As Zach mentioned, Corey Chase with Dynamic Traffic. It's great to see everyone again. We did prepare a very detailed and thorough traffic impact study. The most recent edition was last revised December 22nd, 2025. Happy to report in the February 9, 2026 review letter issued by the Planning Board's consultant, MJ. Their last comment in that review letter under the traffic impact statement section is all previous comments have been addressed. So we did a lot of detailed work with the Planning Board's consultant. There was some additional information that they wanted, some supplemental studies. Provided all that information to their consultant and have to report they have no additional comments. But just to give the board ideas to the sort of the context in the study, we did a pre and post development analysis at the signalized intersection of Van Wyck Lake Road and Route 9 in both an event arrival and an event departure scenario to analyze both of those events on that intersection to see if there were any detrimental traffic impacts as a result of the application before you this evening. We found that the signalized intersection at Route 9 was going to operate at the same levels of service without this application scenario as it would post-development. So what we do is we compare the pre and post-development conditions to see operationally will there be any impacts at that intersection.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Of course.
How far from the entrance, from the egress to get on and off the property is it to the signal? And
So I can put that in even better context. So as part of this analysis, we look at the vehicle backups from the signalized intersection in both those scenarios. So to the driveway to Maya on Van Wyck Lake Road, it's 160 feet. The worst case backup that we saw in any of our analysis periods was 115 feet. So the backup from that signalized intersection wouldn't even get to the Maya driveway. So certainly there would be no impacts to the neighbors up the road, to our driveways, even in an event egress situation. So we're very confident in the results of our study. Obviously, the planning board's consultants concurred with our findings. And again, it wouldn't even reach the Maya driveway. So the factor of safety you would have to exceed to get to our driveways is very excessive. We don't ever see a scenario where that would occur. And this is also conservative. We counted one of the existing events at Alex's facility just to get an idea as to vehicle occupancy, things of that nature. We utilized that in projecting out what this development could ultimately see in the future. What we didn't take into account for is obviously there are going to be people staying at the facility that are going to go to the event at that facility, and that's going to reduce the actual external traffic because they're going to be a guest of the facility. They're already going to be staying there. And there's also going to be shuttle buses provided to adjacent hotels as well. So we didn't assume any of that and reduce the external traffic. We just took one of his existing events, modeled that vehicle occupancy, and then just added all that traffic on to get a conservative analysis.
Yeah, I've heard the word valet, right? Is all these things going to be valeted, most of your larger events?
Yes. They all are.
Because I was at an event last week, and I think it was near Yonkers or Hastings, and the traffic was backed up because everybody tends to arrive around the same time at the start time. Yeah. And where are those cars lining the street to get into the driveway, if they are going to line the streets?
So I'll let him briefly comment on how many cars we could fit on site before a backup even occurs, which is probably the most important point that you're getting at. Mm-hmm. We also have 2 entrances to operate during an event, so cars will never have a scenario where they're queuing on Van Wyck Lake Road. The second portion of that is really about staffing and the operation and administration of that type of an event. It is not in our interest to have a single car queuing on Van Wyck Lake Road. Not only is that an unsafe condition, but from there, it's like a 10, 15-minute wait just to get out of your car and valet. That would never work at the type of establishment that we are hoping to run there. So it's about staffing and making sure that we not only have adequate on-site valet staff, but also a very specific process to getting those vehicles into a lot.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
Just to echo what Alex said, you could accommodate approximately 30 cars on site before you would reach the street. Obviously, as Alex mentioned, we don't ever want a situation where there are 30 cars waiting to utilize the valet because that's very inefficient and not very satisfactory to the guests. So one of the benefits to having this as an events-based operation is Alex knows how many people are coming at any given time, so he can staff valet accordingly based on what that event attendance is going to be. So it's not a situation where, at a restaurant, you don't know at any given time potentially how many people are going to show up, a sporting event or something like that. This is event-based, it's time-based. He can staff accordingly based on that to give the guests the optimum scenario in which they're processed in an efficient manner.
I don't know if we talked about lighting. Did we talk about lighting at all?
Not really, no.
Like parking lot lighting, driveway lighting?
We have discussed that extensively before the planning board.
Yeah, I'm sure you have, yeah.
And we've submitted lighting plans as well.
Okay, thank you.
We can certainly discuss it briefly.
Yeah, I was just going to add that we have provided lighting plans, lighting details. Everything complies with town code. We're using dark sky compliant fixtures to make sure all the lighting is staying on site.
Thank you.
No, as far as traffic goes, Debbie, I believe the traffic study is available online for the general public to see?
It's always, anything that's submitted is always attached to a planning board agenda.
Okay, so if anybody in the public, you want to see those traffic studies, they are there, look at them,
Yeah.
They're fairly easy to understand.
And just a quick comment there. This is not something that we presented and then obviously the town's engineers just rubber stamped. This was extensive back and forth between the teams for months. Reviews and comments and suggestions and modifications that we complied with and revised our programs in order to meet the comments of the town's planning board.
Thank you. Arnold, you have any questions?
No.
No? I have one more question that I think that we haven't seen tonight is, I know you said you've been working with the neighbors. The neighbor across from the new driveway, okay, by the valet check-in or what have you, the opening alongside the road there, has that been resolved on what's going to happen there?
Yeah, so officially, no, it hasn't been resolved yet. We have proposed multiple solutions to work with the neighbor. Again, on record, we will commit 100% to resolving that the way the neighbor would like to resolve it. I know we're on the record here, but I'm going to say it anyway with the attorneys present. That land is supposed to be a buffer space that no one is supposed to touch. And so there sort of lies a question of, well, if no one's supposed to touch it, how can we touch it or how can they touch it? So I'll leave it there for the board's understanding. We obviously will work with the neighbor in any capacity that they would like, and we would certainly work to improve any condition and finalize that with our full budget participation.
Yeah, because I think that's kind of important. You know, we're going to be ruling on parking in the front yard, okay? And if that's going to affect the neighbor, because that, whoever cleared those trees or what have you, if lights or noise or whatever is going to be affecting that neighbor, I'd like to see if we can mitigate that. And obviously, you're offering, I don't know what the neighbor's responses are, you know, but I would like to see something, whatever you guys resolve with that neighbor, on the plans or something in writing saying what's going to be done prior to us approving or disapproving this variance.
If the board will give us approval to submit that with the existing town code and issues, then yes, we're happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, guys, thanks. David?
Yeah.
At this point, I know the planning board doesn't have a neg deck yet, so there's no action that we can take tonight. I guess what we should do is adjourn the public hearing to next month, or?
Yeah, set it down for a date
close?
certain next month, and
Is it prudent to adjourn it, or have we done enough that we can close it?
no, you can't close it
Oh, you
because
can't
they
close
don't have the neg deck yet.
Oh, okay, so we can't
Yeah,
close the public
you cannot.
hearing.
Yeah, my recommendation would be that you cannot close it.
Okay. All right, so maybe we could get a motion to adjourn the public hearing to, I believe it's May 19th?
Correct. Motion.
And we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed. Okay, we'll see you guys next month.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Does anybody have anything else? No new business? No? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? Aye? All opposed? Bye. Thank you.